2025 is Monkeymoon's 5th season in the rlcs and his 7th year overall competing in Rocket League esports. And in this time, he's established himself as maybe the greatest player we've ever seen. Whilst undisputed number 1 is still a matter of debate within the community, one thing that Monkeymoon is unmatched in is his achievements. 10 regional wins, 3 European major titles, 3 LAN second place finishes, 1 rlcs major win, 1-time Esports World Cup champion and 2-time Open Era World Champion, totaling up to 4+ years of longevity at the top of competitive Rocket League. And whilst other players might have more accolades in certain categories, it's really the last one that sets Monkeymoon apart from everyone. 2 World Championships means Monkeymoon is only one of 4 multi-world champions in 9 years of rlcs history, which should cement him in at least the top 4 of all time. And this is without even mentioning his 3 back-to-back World's Grand Final streak, 4 if you want to account for rlcs X. So when it was announced that for the 2025 season, Monkeymoon and Exotic would be teaming up with Zen on Team Vitality, it felt like another year of many trophies. 3 world champions within just the last 2 years teaming up seemed like they would be in contention to win almost every event this season. However, the reality so far has been much different. If you look at their results this season, on paper they have not finished lower than top 6 in any event, but actually watching them play on a weekend tells a completely different story. On Fridays and Saturdays, the team is excellent, producing performances worthy of winning the event, and these performances are really what propels the team deep into the tournament. But on Sunday, it all seems to fall apart for them. The team becomes a mess of confused decision making and countless whiffs, leaving one player, whoever seems to be playing the best at the time, to do most of the heavy lifting. Performances like these are what has led to Team Vitality not winning a single event so far this season. And this makes it the first time in Monkeymoon's career where he's failed to at least make the finals of a major LAN event before the World Championships. So when we talk about the potential of Monkeymoon winning a 3rd title this season, it feels like it's going to be harder than ever for him to perform this miracle. To understand why that is, we're going to have to take a look back at Monkeymoon's career and see how he's recovered from similar positions in the past to go on and win the championship. In rlcs X, Monkeymoon and Team BDS went on one of the most dominant runs we've seen from a team in the Open Era. 5 regional wins and 3 European major titles. Now whilst the season was exclusively online play, in Monkeymoon's own words, had we seen in-person LAN events, Team BDS would have won at least 2 out of 4 of them, which combined with the previously mentioned regional wins, still would have been one of the most successful seasons ever. But when it came down to the title of rlcs X champion, Team BDS would lose in the Grand Finals and combine this with another 2nd place finish in the We Play Esports Cross-Regional Invitational, and the fans had started to develop a stigma around Monkeymoon as someone who folds under the pressure and fails to perform when it matters most. And this stigma would carry into the next season, when in Season 11, Team BDS failed to win any of the 3 regionals of the first 2021 fall split, their best position once again being 2nd place. So heading into their first in-person fall major, there were all kinds of doubts on BDS and Monkeymoon. But these doubts would be put to bed when in what is considered the unofficial rlcs X Grand Finals, BDS would win against NRG and in a huge sigh of relief would finally crown themselves fall major champions, proving all the doubters wrong and removing the stigma. Now you wouldn't be faulted for thinking that this was just the beginning of another dominant season, but hindsight can be a curse. In the next 2022 winter split, whilst BDS did manage to win 1 out of 3 regionals, when it came time for the winter major, BDS would be brutally clean swept out of the tournament by FaZe Clan in their very first live crowd series as a team. And after this embarrassing loss, BDS would part ways with one of their long-time players marked by 8, and in his place they would bring in French prodigy Seiko. And this move proved to be a success when in the following spring split, BDS were back to dominating Europe with 2 out of 3 regional wins in a row and a 2nd place finish in the 3rd. So heading into the spring major, BDS were favorites to take home the win. However, in what is perhaps one of the biggest upsets in rlcs history, the favorites would be knocked out of the tournament having just played 2 series and without winning a single game. This remains to this day the lowest point in Monkeymoon's career, as not only was the stigma from the fans back, but also there would have been a plethora of self-doubt. Dominating the season and putting in outstanding performances when it matters least, to being swept out of tournaments and not performing when it's expected of you the most. These are the types of thoughts that can devour someone from the inside. Alongside multiple in real life troubles, you would think this would destroy Monkeymoon's mentality for the future. However, looking back, there was one moment from Monkeymoon in the Spring Major that jumps out the most when we talk about mental. In the final moments of BDS's tournament losing series against KC Pioneers, despite already having lost, Monkeymoon decides to keep the ball up at 0 seconds. And while his teammates looks absolutely distraught, he does a lap of the field and scores a goal that was ultimately pointless, but still decides to celebrate it by flexing his arms. Now, to many people, this moment is meaningless. However, to me, this is an amazing look into Monkeymoon's mentality. Even in his lowest point possible, he decides to have some fun instead of wallowing in sorrow. Smiling in the face of adversity is exactly the mark of a champion, and is maybe a sign for the future to come. In the World Championship that followed after the spring split, the conversation on who could potentially win was blown open. BDS were still contenders, of course, but after the disaster class in the Spring Major, even their most committed fans would have been left shaken and doubtful, so no one really knew what to expect. But in the end, after all the difficulties and heartbreaks, in perhaps what is the single greatest comeback from a team across events, Monkeymoon, Extra and Seiko on Team BDS would go on an undefeated 5-series run to win the World Championship and crown themselves as the very first rlcs Open Era World Champions. Despite multiple points in the season where it looked hopeless, Monkeymoon in the end prevailed and overcame it all. He proved the entire world wrong and silenced even his most vocal critics. Moving on to Season 12, BDS decided to keep the roster unchanged, but this was turned out to be the wrong decision. As for the first 2 splits of the season, this championship-winning roster failed to win any of the 6 regionals and didn't qualify for both LANs, with their best finishing position till that point being 5th. From winning the most important title in RLCS to not winning a single event in the span of just 6 months. Yet again, another similar low point for Monkeymoon's career. And yet again, the doubters were back questioning his resolve. So BDS once again made the decision to part ways with another one of their longtime players in Extra and swapped him out for the Englishman Rise. And just like the previous season, BDS were once again back on top of Europe with a podium finish in all 3 of the following Spring Split regionals. And I would love to tell you how Monkeymoon put in performances of a lifetime, and BDS went to dominate and win the next 2 LANs in the remaining Spring Split Major and Monkeymoon and Team BDS's second world title. However, a certain soon-to-be teammate rookie called Zen was busy completing his destiny at the time and would instead be the one to win both the LAN and Worlds with Team Vitality, leaving BDS with 2nd place in both events. Despite the disappointment, going from nowhere to championship contenders once again in the span of 6 months showcased Monkeymoon's hunger and determination to never give up. The fans rightfully saw this and quickly began ranking him among the greatest players of all time. Heading into Season 13, BDS, likely having seen the previous results of keeping their roster unchanged across seasons, rightfully decided to rebuild around Monkeymoon and brought in French players Exotic and rookie and prodigy Drawley. Their first split together once again saw them land in the podium of all 3 regionals, but they would fall short in the Copenhagen Major, landing in 8th place, losing to one of the tournament grand finalists. Their second split would initially yield much more successful results, with 2 out of 3 regional wins. In spite of this, when it came time for the London Major, BDS would once again land in 8th place, this time being painfully eliminated without putting up a fight whatsoever. For the 3rd time in his career, Monkeymoon found himself in the same position as before, struggling with consistency and self-doubt. However, this time there would be no roster change, as heading into the 2024 Esports World Cup, something between the players on BDS seemed to have clicked, as they would beat the favorites Team Falcon to win their first LAN of the season and become EWC champions. They would carry this momentum into the 2024 World Championships with a 3-1 performance out of Swiss and would fight their way through the playoffs, beating all of the top 3 Swiss performers one by one. After yet another season of hardships, just like the final boss in a video game, Monkeymoon and Team BDS would yet again find themselves in their 3rd consecutive Worlds Grand Final, with any other team having to defeat Monkeymoon in order to take the title for themselves. But Monkeymoon would inevitably prevail, as Team BDS would win the 2024 World Championship, crowning Monkeymoon as the first ever 2-time Open Era World Champion, joining the ranks of only 3 other multi-world champions. Now returning to the present day in Season 14 and trying to relate Monkeymoon's current troubles with the past, one thing that has always remained the common factor for Monkeymoon's success in these last 3 seasons is his individual performances. We have always seen him having dips in form in multiple parts of previous years, but despite this he has always been able to recover and bring his A game in the latter half of the season. But this year we have yet to see that return of form from Monkeymoon. Instead, even in the most recent Esports World Cup, his performance has been incredibly sporadic, disappearing in and out of multiple games throughout a series and just overall having poor decision making. And it doesn't help that it was his positioning mistake in Game 7 overtime that eventually eliminated Vitality from the tournament. All of this makes it incredibly difficult to get a clear read on his true level heading into Worlds. Another point I feel is worth discussing is that we are now seeing Monkeymoon in the twilight of his career. As he has stated, he doesn't see himself continuing to play professionally for years to come. And with how rocky of a season Vitality has had so far, even if they end up becoming world champions, I don't think Vitality, unlike BDS which was Monkeymoon's home for his entire career previously, will be very receptive to keeping him for another season. But to say that this could be the reason behind his poor form as of late would be incorrect in my opinion. It can be easy to say that he just doesn't have the motivation anymore to grind as before, when he's already stated to have achieved all his goals. But I just don't believe that those can be the qualities of a two-time world champion. Players like Monkeymoon who have achieved so much in their careers are always hungry to win it all, no matter the circumstances or regardless of it's their first tournament or their last. They will always fight to win until the very end, because if they don't, they will be left with a deep internal unsatisfaction. Regardless of what happens at the World Championships, I have full faith in Monkeymoon to give it his all till the very last game alongside Zen and Exotic, who are excellent players and are world champions for a reason. If there's anyone who I believe in to come back from the lowest of low points and win it all, it's Monkeymoon, because there's literally zero evidence to suggest otherwise. In the end, even if we don't see him become the eventual 3-time, I think at minimum we will see him make one last grand final appearance before the end of his career.